Hi everyone, thanks for coming to this. I'm Matt. I'm an AWS community builder and AWS ambassador. I do also have a day job, which is part of the architect team at a company called CDL. We're actually based just down the road. We've got a campus in Stockport, and we're an AWS independent software vendor partner, and we use data and AI to power digital insurance journeys. If you've ever purchased insurance, it's highly likely one of our solutions running in AWS has processed your details and given you a quote in real time. And to help us with all of that, we build and run all of our kind of insurance ecosystem at scale, and we use the AWS well-architected framework to guide us, which is kind of what we're here to talk about today. So a bit of an intro. If you've not heard of well-architected before, AWS well-architected helps cloud architects build secure, high-performing, resilient, and efficient infrastructure for a variety of different applications and workloads. It's built around 6 pillars. So we have operational excellence, security, reliability, performance efficiency, cost optimization, and sustainability. AWS well-architected, it provides a consistent approach for AWS customers and their partners to evaluate their architectures and implement scalable designs when working in the cloud. To complement this, we have the AWS well-architected tool, and it provides a mechanism for regularly kind of evaluating those cloud workloads, identifying high-risk issues, and recording and processing improvements. By answering a few kind of foundational questions, you get to learn how well your architecture aligns with cloud best practices, and also, more importantly, gain guidance for making improvements to it. So a bit of terminology that's used kind of within well-architected in the rest of this presentation, so we become familiar with it. First of all, we have a workload. So this is a collection of resources and code that delivers business value. So you might have a customer-facing application or a back-end process that you're running in AWS, and this is the subject of the well-architected reviews we complete using the well-architected tool. Next, we have lenses, and these provide a way for you to consistently measure your architectures against best practices and identify areas for improvement. So the AWS well-architected framework is a lens that's automatically applied when a workload is created inside the well-architected tool. But a workload can have more lenses applied as well. Each lens would have its own set of questions, best practices, notes, and improvement plans. There's 2 different types of lenses that can be applied to the workloads in the tool. First of all, lenses that come from the catalog, and then we have custom lenses. So the lenses that come from the catalog, these are the official lenses that are created and maintained by AWS. Opposing this, you have the custom lenses. So these are user-defined lenses. So they're not official AWS content. You can create custom lenses with your own set of pillars, questions, best practices, improvement plans, and you can share those custom lenses with other AWS accounts as well. Within well-architected tool, we have a milestone. So a milestone is where you record the state of a workload at a particular point in time. So as you change your workload based on items in your improvement plan, you'll create milestones to measure your progress over time. So what I've done, I think anyway, is a best practice, is every time I kind of update an entry in the well-architected tool, I'll create a milestone, or particularly where I'm making improvement, I'll create a milestone so I can show progress over time. And finally, within the lenses, you have a set of questions, and each question has responses that are available for the people evaluating the workload to select. So typically, these questions are written as best practices that you can say are being applied or not applied. So AWS well-architected, it's essentially a steady process for managing your architecture using those AWS best practices. Most places, though, I found anyway, will also have non-AWS rules and regulations that apply to the cloud workloads that they're operating. So a bit of a show of hands. Who here has to follow kind of company policies? Yeah, everyone. Internal best practices, maybe like you've got coding standards that you follow. Yeah. You might have compliance regulations, maybe you work in like financial services, and there's obviously like industry best practices and regulations that people have to follow. If you're working with customers directly, they may impose their own policies and rules and regulations on you that you might need to follow in order to win that business. And if you're working kind of globally, depending on which territory you're operating in, you're going to have things like local laws that apply. So there's lots of things that are non-AWS that you have to follow, as well as all the AWS good stuff. So I think this is where custom lenses come in. So with custom lenses, you have your own pillars, your own questions, your own best practices, and improvement plans that can go along with all of that. And you can apply custom lenses to the workload in the same way that you apply the AWS provided lenses. And you can also share these custom lenses with other AWS accounts, and people who create custom lenses can share them with you. One of the benefits here is that you can tailor the questions in a custom lens to be specific around, say, a particular technology to help you meet governance needs within your own organization, or extend the guidance provided by the well-architected framework in the AWS lenses. But like the existing lenses, you can track progress over time by creating those milestones, and then you can do periodic status checks by creating and generating reports. So I'm going to step through the process for how to create a custom lens. First of all, it's a JSON structure. So it starts off with a basic description and name. Then we define our pillars. Note, these can be different from the 6 AWS ones. We will then go on to define our set of questions, and more importantly, the helpful resources that go alongside these to assist people in understanding them further. So at CDL, we use SharePoint, so we might have our coding standards defined on SharePoint. We might have kind of internal technical best practices defined on SharePoint pages. So I'll link out to those SharePoint pages and other references that we have to help the teams within the AWS well-architected tool understand them. So then, for each question, we define the choices that are available for people to select from within the tool. And then finally, we would define rules that calculate the risk. So this is based on the choices that people make, and you've got some basic logic rules that you can apply to evaluate risk in the tool as well. So another benefit, I think anyway, of creating custom lenses is transparency around architecture reviews. So when people are tasked with building out solutions, they often want clear guidance on what's the expectations, what are the quality gates that they have to meet. Often this can be in the area of non-functional requirements that are less understood typically than the functional ones. So custom lenses, as they're created in JSON template at CDL, using the structure we've just run through, we're adding these to version control and Git just like any other piece of code. That way, every change we make to the guidance and the rules and regulations, it's all reviewed through GitLab in our case. The review process is transparent, and so is the inclusion of feedback and also the approval. Any developer can go and see what's been going on and why things have changed and understand it. Another tip is to use review templates in the well-architected tool. So these are essentially pre-filled answers for the well-architected framework and those custom lenses that you might be creating against the best practice questions that you've defined. So well-architected review templates reduce the need to manually fill in the same answers for best practices that are often common across workloads when you're performing well-architected reviews. They also help drive consistency and standardization of best practices across different teams and workloads. So you create a review template to answer common best practice questions or create notes to help teams along the correct path. You then define your workload from those review templates, and that helps us scale common best practices and reduce review effort across our different workloads. If you're an AWS partner, having a foundational technical review is often a prereq for further designations like financial services competency. So at CDL, we're an AWS partner, and we need to maintain these competencies to maintain our level within the partner network and the support we therefore get from the partner network. Effectively, if we don't do things like foundational technical reviews, we'll drop down a couple of levels and lose associated funding and support. So by creating custom lenses for partner designations like FTRs or financial services competency, we're able to keep our tooling and data around architecture risks and reviews consistent, all within the well-architected tool. So you may be wondering, the title of the talk is data-driven, well-architected, and I haven't mentioned data up to now. Well, this is the bit where we're going to start talking about how data can help us with well-architected. So a claim benefit of the well-architected tool is the ability to view the results of the workloads across your entire organization in a single dashboard. So there's a caveat to this. They do make it clear, to be fair. I have highlighted it with a big red box around the caveat here. The full set of dashboard analytics only apply to the well-architected lens. If you're using other lenses like foundational technical review or any custom lenses for any partner competencies or other standards you've created, this data is not included by default in the analytics that the tool provide. So to get a full picture of our workload reviews, including foundational technical reviews, AWS provided, and custom lenses, I needed to build out a bit of a solution. So here we have that, the architecture at least on screen. So on a daily schedule, we have a Lambda function that runs and collects the workload IDs of all the workloads I have in my well-architected tool. Those IDs are added to EventBridge, and then another Lambda function gets executed to get the full history of that corresponding workload. Each workload can have multiple milestones, which is that point in time snapshot of the state of the workload. Each milestone will include one or more lenses. Each lens has one or more pillars, and each pillar has one or more questions with associated responses, which generate that overall level of risk. The workload history Lambda outputs all of that data in JSON lines format to S3. From here, we can then catalog the JSON files using AWS Glue Data Catalog, and that allows me the ability to run SQL queries against it using Amazon Athena. And then finally, I use QuickSight to provide visualizations of all of this data, and also the Q Gen AI features of QuickSight to ask questions of my well-architected data using natural language. So I'm going to walk through this kind of architecture in code, and if the internet holds up, at least through the AWS console. So first of all, we have our get workloads Lambda. This is the one that's set to execute on a schedule. So we need to get all of the workloads that we have in the well-architected tool and put their IDs on EventBridge for that second Lambda function to pick up. So this part of the code is just using the AWS SDK to connect to the well-architected APIs. Specifically, in this case, it's calling the list workloads API. Once we have the workload ID, then we can just put that on EventBridge. So for each of those workload IDs added to EventBridge, by the first Lambda function, we execute our second get workload history Lambda function. If we think back to how workloads are structured within a well-architected tool, this code is basically walking through that to get all of the information for each workload. So each workload has one or more milestones. Each milestone has been reviewed with one or more lenses. Each lens has one or more pillars, and each pillar has one or more questions with the associated answers. So it's going to call all of those different well-architected APIs to get all of that information. So this part of the code is getting all of the milestones that we have for a particular workload. I'm also adding some additional context here by adding a new field of data that indicates if the milestone is the latest one or not. So we did this after doing well-architected reviews for a while. We realized that the most questions tend to be about the current state of the workload rather than previous states. So we basically added a field in there to make that easier to filter on in later steps. So then for each milestone, we get all of the answers to the questions. And then this part of the code brings everything together into a flat JSON structure There's a lot of fields, so to make the code fit onto the screen here, I've actually removed most of them. And then the final part of the code saves that flat JSON structure into a file and uploads it to S3. Now, I realize that it's not always easy to show code in a presentation, so the Lambda functions are available for you to look at and use at your leisure. If you scan the QR code, you'll go to the GitHub repo with those 2 Lambda functions in. Okay, so this is one of the lines in one of the output files for a particular workload. This example is showing a question about disaster recovery, and if we're managing that in line with recovery point objectives and recovery time objectives. So we've got all of our files at this point in S3. So within Glue, we create a schema that matches the JSON structure. As you can see, there's lots of fields involved in there. It's basically everything that's in the well-architected tool, apart from maybe a couple of things. Okay, so if the internet is held up, we will switch over to the console and we'll look in the well-architected tool, we'll do some queries in Athena, and then start to visualize all of this in QuickSight. Yay, looking good. Okay, yeah, so let's have a look at well-architected tool first of all. So I've got 4 workloads. I should point out these are not real CDL workloads. These have got loads of high risks. We're doing much, much better than this. I just created these 4 workloads to give the best demo I think that I could. So let's look at the worst. Well, we've got 2 really bad workloads. So we've got my example workload and my migrated workload. And we can see here that we've got 6 high risks for the migrated workload. So let's have a look at that. And if we go in, we've got 2 lenses. So we've answered none of the questions on well-architected, but we've answered all of the questions on the foundational technical review. And we've got 6 risks. So here we go. So let's have a look at backup and recovery. So although we are backing up our data automatically, that's good. We aren't actually performing periodic recovery of that data to verify that the backup has got integrity and the process works. So you typically, for a workload, you'd set an RTO, RPO, and you'd want to test it periodically because there's nothing worse than being called out at 3 in the morning, realizing you can't restore from a backup. So this is a foundational best practice that we're reviewing this workload against. So because that second box isn't ticked, our risk criteria rules are showing this as high risk, quite rightly. If we go back to the well-architected tool, we've got our dashboard. So although I can see we've got some high risks at the top, when I actually scroll down, I've got no issues to display. And that's because this section of the analytics is only looking at well-architected lens. It's not looking at any of the other lenses. So if you look at this dashboard, it appears everything's good. Well, we now know it's not. So quickly show you in S3. We've got our 4 workloads represented here as 4 individual JSON files. And if we look in Athena, because I've catalogued that in AWS Glue, I've got some tables here where I've got all these different fields from the well-architected tool effectively are held within those JSON files. So I can see the name of the workload, the accounts that it applies to, the regions it's deployed in, what industry it relates to, what the milestone is, when that milestone was taken, what the lenses are, what all the questions are, and whether anything's risk, what the level of risk is. So I can start to run some queries against that, if I can remember how to type. So we get tons and tons and tons of questions where we can query all of those using SQL. So you could do something like, say, so if you just want a summary of all your risks, then we can see we've got 29 high risks, 3 medium, lots of unanswered questions, and you could maybe do something like to get a bit more granularity. It's not called lens. What is it called? Lens name. No, typo. The joys of doing a live demo. There we go, we got there in the end. So we can see all the issues really are around this foundational technical review. Everything in well architected in this case is unanswered, but we can break it down further. So that's all well and good if you like running things in SQL. But say you were a CTO and you had lots and lots of workloads and you wanted a very quick way to visualize what was going on for what you were responsible for, you might ask for a dashboard. So let's look at how we could potentially build one of those out. So in QuickSight, what we've created here is a data set. So if we click in that and do the edit data set, you can see all this is pointing to the same Athena table and database that I've just been running SQL against. It's brought all of that data in, and we can see all of the different fields in here. So that's stage one, create the data set. Next, you would create an analysis, link to that data set, and let's start from scratch so you can kind of see the process. So one of the reasons I like QuickSight, it's really easy to get started with. So we have all of our data here, and we might be interested in risk levels. So let's click on risk, and yes, it worked. QuickSight's had a go at picking the type of visualization it thinks I want based on the data, which, you know, it's a good start. I've got a little count here of all the risks, and then I may want to do what I did in the SQL. So if I drop lens name into the group, I get to see the different lens names there. So you can play around with this and create your dashboards really, really easily. The next thing I wanted to do was use some of the Gen AI features in QuickSight. So as well as visualizing the data, I wanted to be able to ask questions of it in natural language. And how you do that in QuickSight is you create a topic. So if we go to topics here, and we can click into the well-architected one that I created earlier, and we can see all of the data. So again, this is just based on calling out to Athena and running SQL. And what we have here is all of the different fields, and I can, in machine learning, you go through a process of what's called feature engineering, deciding which fields or bits of data you want included in the machine learning process, or in this case, what you want the LLM under the hood of all of this to access. So there's certain things that I don't think is valuable, so I've toggled them off, and things that I think are valuable and I'm going to want to ask questions about, I've toggled on. The other thing I've done here is to help the LLMs, because they're not magic, despite what all the sales pitches would lead you to believe. I'm helping them because when you ask questions in natural language, you don't ask the questions in the same way that you write SQL. So my CTO might not use the field lens underscore name. He might just say lens name, or he might say lens. So I'm giving it synonyms to follow. So similar here, milestone recorded at is the field name. My CTO doesn't talk that way. He'd say milestone. So let's help the LLM out by giving it these different synonyms. So this is a bit of trial and error, and it's that kind of process of kind of feature engineering, I think, that's common within kind of machine learning workloads. So let's go back. Now we understand about topics, and we can look at the dashboard that I've built earlier. So again, all done through drag and drop. And we can see I've got 4 workloads, there's 29 high risks. I can see when these risks are being created over time. So therefore, I know whether my improvement plans will actually work. Am I getting better or am I getting worse? Am I staying the same? All of this is visualized, which is great. But my CTO probably doesn't want to look at the dashboard because he's just heard about this AI stuff. So we can say which workload has the most high risks. And we have a nervous wait. And I think it's done it. Let's let it answer in its own way. Come on, Gen AI. Yes. So it's taken my English language description and it's given me an English language answer back. It's also really cool, I think anyway. It's drawn some graphs for me based on my question that I've asked. It's drawn me some graphs that it thinks might be helpful, which it is because it's showing me that my example workload and my migrated workload do have indeed the highest risks. So let's try and dig into why these things are risky. So we could say which pillar has the most high risks. So this is good because the pillars will tell you which kind of area here that you should be investing your time. Should I be investing my time improving security? Or have I got risks because my operational excellence isn't as good as it should be? In this case, what it's saying, by a short margin anyway, that I'd be better spending my time on operational excellence because that's where I've got the most risks in my workload, and then follow that on with improving reliability and then security. Okay, so we know we've got to focus on operational excellence, reliability, security. We're pretty good on cost, performance, and sustainability. We haven't got any high risks there, so all good. So let's look at what's really causing the problem. Which question has the most high risks? So what we're seeing here is what we showed in the well-architected tool. Number one, I'm not doing periodic architecture reviews, so I'm not reviewing my architecture as often as I should do. So maybe things are going into production that perhaps a review would have caught. I'm not doing particularly well on disaster recovery or identifying sensitive data. And after that, we've got backup and recovery that I need to focus on. So these kind of top 3, kind of conducting periodic reviews, DR, and sensitive data, they're all in the area of operational excellence. And things like down here, identity and access management, they're related to security. Okay, so let's go back, if we can. Yeah. We don't need our videos because the internet held up for us, thank you. Okay, so if you think this is interesting or you'd want to hear a little bit more, then we actually recorded a Twitch stream with AWS on the Let's Talk About Data show. So again, scan the QR code, it will take you to that particular show. Should point out this show is really good if you're interested in data at all on AWS. It's a weekly live stream for data professionals. They cover like the latest news and information, all about AWS data services and innovation across the cloud. They cover like regular service updates, technical deep dives, new service launches, and also interviews. They get really good people on from AWS, but they also have like community builders. They've had like AWS data heroes and really, really good customer stories as well as guests on that show. It's every Wednesday. I think it's 3 p.m. our time. So yeah, check out that show if that sounds interesting. So just to kind of recap, and then we can go and enjoy our drinks and food. Covered well architected, so this provides a framework for assessing cloud workloads. Well architected tool allows you to capture risks and generate improvement plans. Custom lenses allow you to add your organization's unique perspective into those architecture reviews, but within the well architected tool. Then by using analytics services such as Athena and QuickSight, you can gain additional insight, capture trends, and also prioritize actions for improvement. Thanks very much for listening.
Hey, do we have any questions for Matt on any of the topics covered or his demo, which, by the way, live demos, kudos to you.
I did have video backups.
I was going to say, no, we skipped past the videos. I was like, okay. I thought you were just being really wild for a minute. Any questions? Anything people want to kind of dive deeper on? Yeah.
I just want to know what's the cost associated with the whole solution, like QuickSight, Athena, and
Yeah.
is it variable or it's just static across?
Yeah. So, well architected tool, from in terms of cost optimization, is the best service on AWS. It's completely free. Then, what you add on that architecture that I've described, there is some cost to that. I think by using the services I picked, so S3 and Athena, so serverless, I'm not standing up a database that's running 24/7. I only get charged for the queries that I actually execute. That's really cost optimized. Probably the most expensive thing in the solution is QuickSight. So you're charged for users. So to get that dashboard, you'd have a Reader Pro license, I think it is. So you can have a reader access, which would be about $5 per user per month. So you'd get the dashboard. You wouldn't get the Gen AI feature for that, though. So you pay a little bit more to get the Reader Pro, and then you can ask questions on that. But it is capped at that monthly rate. So, yeah, it depends how far you go. If you're creating dashboards and creating topics, and then you need like an Author Pro license, I think the top one is about $50 per user per month, but you're going to have fewer people creating topics and dashboards than consuming them. So, yeah.
There's also, not that I should, but there's a feature for like generating reports with the QuickSight stuff, which we've been using loads of customers.
Yeah.
And then obviously then you can generate and sort of share those reports. And although it won't be live dashboarding in the moment, you do actually have the ability to basically we'll just like write an entire report with all the graphics, all in English language without having to kind of do the manual bits. So it's just a little feature. There was more questions, which start over that day. 1 second. Come around this way.
Yeah, I mentioned the story, like, so what you just said is really, really great feature. There's the story feature as well, which produces your the equivalent of your PowerPoints for your board. That's a really cool feature of QuickSight as well. But yeah, cool. I'm a QuickSight fanboy, sorry.
So yeah, thanks for the talk. It was really, really interesting. I guess it's a question of like in some far extremes, it's difficult to get customers to even migrate into containers and put that effort in. Over to your previous talk as well, so thank you. What sort of pushback do you see from clients and customers actually taking the time and effort to go through well-architected framework reviews? Because it's not like the feature request or feature.
Yeah.
It's one of those things of like the return on investment. How do you drive that kind of to the seniors and then tell the devs to actually go and do these kind of things? Is it always a bit of a challenge?
That's a good question, yeah. So I can explain why it benefited us. But yeah, when we started, we couldn't really articulate necessarily what the monetary value / benefit was. But how it worked out in the end for us is we're an ISV partner. So what we do is we build software for the insurance industry and then go and sell that software. And we host it all on AWS. So there's kind of a price for buying the software and money exchanges hands for running it on AWS. So as part of the architect team, I have to go out and do like technical pre-sales. So I'd be faced with like my counterparts in, say, an insurance company, asking me lots of questions about security, reliability, all those kind of things. So effectively, they're outsourcing their core systems to us. So they're really concerned about, I'm going to pay this money, but am I going to be able to log in the morning? If there's an issue, how quickly am I going to get it back? If there's a data loss, how quickly do I recover from backup? So by doing the foundational technical review and the other designations, what we do then is we pass that result to AWS, a partner solutions architect, who independently verifies what we've built out and all our answers and all our organizational best practices. And if we meet all of those controls, they actually give us a badge. So now, when we go into architecture pre-sales, what we say is, well, don't necessarily believe me. Go onto our AWS partner page and see the awards effectively that we've got, which directly relate to having good architecture best practices, applying best practices to RDS is another one we've got the badge for. So now we can directly tie us winning a deal and revenue back to well architected, because customers have commented going, what has won the deal is, yeah, you've got great features in your software and it delivers value that way, but we were confident in your architect's answers that if we sign up with you, the system's going to be reliable and robust.
Any more questions? Oh, yeah. While I'm walking over, the thing I'd maybe add to that, so I have to do well-architected reviews with my customers, or ask them very nicely to do them. And I think that, and very nicely trying to, and it's a big time investment. I think the thing that we found is that actually it provides a really good framework for building on the cloud if it's something that you're new and still getting to grips with. So actually, because it does get you, like the container lens, for example, literally talks you through everything you need to think about to properly build containers. And actually that can be really beneficial for teams just kind of actually upskilling and being able to sort of validate the work they've done and then get that buy-in. So just something to add on that one. Question?
That's a good summary. What do I need to think about? Yeah.
Thanks for the talk. You have to get the data into the well-architected tool. I wondered if you had any tips and tricks for making sure that you have good coverage of workloads, applications and services mapped to workloads and views, and just getting the data in there really.
Yeah, so there's a couple of things. So one, you can link it to Trusted Advisor and have kind of it self-populated. The other thing we do is we make it part of our kind of architectural governance, but rather than just having like a rule say you must have an FTR before you go into production, the way we structure it is we set dedicated time aside, so we have at least 2 hours on a Tuesday and we have another hour on a Thursday, which are basically open door sessions. So teams can drop in and they can talk about well architected, they can talk about FTR, and we'll spend time with teams going, right, okay, let's spend the next hour taking that high risk that you've got today, let's get that down to a medium in the next hour. And it's those iterative improvements that the teams then see and make it really good. The other thing is, there's like a pride in your work as an engineer. So when they see the end result of like AWS publicly saying, this is a really good workload that these guys have deployed onto the cloud, there's a lot of pride that the teams take from that as well.
Amazing. Right, well, I think just one more round of applause to Matt, because it's the hardest time in the day.